This is Forza 13, it's Australia Oceania Channel for Saturday the 12th of October 2019. For the next few minutes we bring you the highlights of a live stream on the Typhoon Hagibis conducted by Nathan, the project owner of Forza 13.
We have opening music, but this time I guess we won't. Typhoon Hagibis is more important than that anyway. There it is on the screen on the right hand side. Latest imagery of the storm. It's still a category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale with winds of 120 miles per hour, our estimate, and a pressure around 930 millibars. Here's some other imagery of the storm drawing closer to Japan this hour. It's just past midnight local time, and on the universal clock it's just past 3 p.m. Still has a decently developed central core there. The eye is starting to fade away. However, it will still carry a lot of intensity as it moves over land. Look at the size of its influence, for one. And then it will eventually make landfall somewhere on the southern coast in the next 24 hours. Models were suggesting that landfall would occur at about 21 hours from now. Remains to be seen whether the storm will go quicker or indeed slower than what is forecasted to that regard, to that end. Also, we have some breaking news this hour. Subtropical storm Melissa has formed in the Atlantic as well. We've got to give this a mention. New tropical cyclone, subtropical cyclone off the coast of the United States. We won't be talking about that very much though, because there are no warnings in effect. And so the main feature is Typhoon Hagibis. Now, there are lots of warnings in effect across Japan, and you'll see across all of our graphics this hour everything scrolling by and all of the information that you need. But let me just go on with the latest information. So, storm warnings, typhoon warnings in effect for many parts of Kyushu now, mainly the eastern side, the southern coasts of Shikoku, and also parts of Honshu as well, particularly the prefectures of Mie and Aichi. Also on the left hand side you can see now the chances of tropical storm force winds in the next 5 days, along with those graphics from the JMA. Really the chances are very high in the Tokyo region for tropical storm force conditions, and I would say typhoon conditions as well. So it's going to be a very rough day on Saturday across the whole country, really, because tropical storm conditions are possible pretty much anywhere in Japan, except maybe the very far north and western areas. Now, the storm is gradually weakening. We do expect that the weakening will be much quicker later on. That's because sea surface temperatures will start to drop off a bit of a ledge as it gets close to the coast of Japan. But I think what will do more of a job in the storm's weakening will be wind shear, high wind shear. It's already on the increase today. It's going to rise even more tomorrow, or today as it is now in Japan, Saturday. So wind shear will rise steeply over the course of Saturday, and hopefully we'll see some significant weakening. Best estimates for a landfall right now, in terms of intensity, we're probably looking at somewhere around 100 miles per hour and a pressure around 945 millibars. So that is still a very powerful landfall considering the storm's size. It's enormous, around 300 nautical miles in each direction is the gale force winds, and typhoon conditions extending out about 70 miles in each direction too. It is a CDPS stage 8. Now that is out of the 10-tiered scale, very high, catastrophic damage expected, not only with those winds, but the main risk really now, even more than the winds, is the rainfall. Now, there's nothing imminently happening at the moment, but in the next 24 hours we could see the potential for landslides, flash flooding, inundation, and stage 8, the expected rainfall amount is about 24 inches, which is 600 millimeters. I've seen some local sources suggest that it could be higher than that indeed. So rainfall, I think, will be a massive threat for many regions here as the storm draws closer. So we're looking at that latest imagery, and let me just try and find, it will take a bit of clicking for me to get there, but the latest in terms of the storm's position and just how far it is from some populated areas. I'm just bringing that up here. If you do have any questions for me during this hour, you can send them in live whilst we're on the air to discuss the latest, and any questions I'm duty bound to answer. Start your message with Force 13 all in text and it will light up for me. So the storm's current position, we're looking at it right now. It's somewhere around 30.3 degrees north and around 136.9 or maybe 137.0 degrees east. That position puts the storm in relation to the coastline 226 miles from the closest point of Honshu, and that is at Wakayama Prefecture. It is 304 miles from Hamamatsu, 334 from Nagoya, 313 from Osaka as well, and 402 miles from Tokyo at this time. So in around 24 hours the storm will be passing through that region or less, so it's going to shift 400 miles in that time. So the storm will surely be picking up pace if it is going to get there according to that schedule. Again, you can see there chances of tropical storm force winds on the left getting near 100% along large parts of the southeastern part of Japan. Very high populations involved, which is probably why there's so much interest in this storm. I think a lot of international interest in this storm as well because of the sporting events that are going on this weekend that have had to be changed because of the storm's arrival, and it surely will arrive over the course of this weekend now. It will be clearing away by Sunday. So we've got the typhoon warnings, we've got the gale advisories, which are in effect for large parts of the islands as well, extending from Amami all the way to most of the way up Honshu towards the north. And then you can see the marine warnings there as well, the purple regions there, typhoon warnings. So large parts of the sea areas there, which are under major threat too. Alright, let's see if we've got some questions, mainly questions about what is its strength. So just to reiterate, we're currently putting the storm's intensity at 120 miles per hour. That's around 190 kilometers per hour. That's sustained winds with higher gusts. And we're putting it at a pressure of around 930 millibars, 930. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center will be going with 130 miles per hour at their update and a pressure of 926, which I think is quite remarkable. And the JMA, of course, the Japan Meteorological Agency, they're currently going with a pressure of 935 and maximum sustained winds of 90 knots near the center. That translates to pretty much what we're saying, 120 miles per hour, 1 minute sustained. The JMA expect that the storm will make landfall again with a pressure around 945 millibars, which is what our calculations came up with as well. And they're expecting wind speeds actually maybe in category 3 still by the time it gets there. So that's an interesting development. I think that's the JMA there saying that the storm will make landfall as a category 3 pretty much, which is certainly more than what we were expecting. However, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center going with quite a bit less. They're calling for a landfall. Now we've got to do some interpolation on this because they put their they put the forecast dots at 24-hour intervals, and at 24 hours it's already made landfall. So 80 knots by then, which is 90 miles per hour, but it probably would be a little bit stronger before making that landfall. So I'd suggest there we're still on course for 100 mile an hour landfall according to the JTWC. So we're looking, therefore, pretty much assured that this storm will make landfall as a Category 2, a worst case, possibly a Category 3. Bear in mind that in the month of October, there have only been, I think, 2 typhoons that have made landfall in Japan as a Category 3. And one of those was on the Ryukyu Islands, much further south. This one is enormous. I think the only other one, I think I'm right in saying it was Maon in 2004, which we've already compared to another storm this year, which struck the same area, Faxai, of course. This storm is much bigger than Faxai. If you're looking to compare the storm to that, it is enormous compared to Faxai. It is more dangerous than that. It is obviously larger. It has got a bigger wind field. There's going to be more widespread gales. There's going to be higher rainfall totals, and quite possibly there's going to be higher sustained winds for longer and inland as well, because this storm won't weaken as quickly as Faxai did because of its larger size. So that is something to bear in mind as well, especially if you're watching us from inland locations. There could still be easily typhoon conditions, and we saw with the tropical storm force wind conditions we're still at 90-something% well inland, almost indeed to the other side of the peninsula, the northwestern regions there. So that's something else to bear into mind there as we continue to watch this storm. I'm here for the hour.
That was a look at a live event that Nathan did around midnight Australian time, and the typhoon continues to track northward. Here's the latest track from the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre. Typhoon 20W Hagibis, located around 300 nautical miles south-southeast of Yokosuka, Japan, tracking northward at 9 knots. This is over the last 6 hours. Animated and enhanced infrared satellite imagery shows convective banding wrapping into a symmetric low-level circulation centre. Convection has obscured the previously well-defined eye. The initial intensity is set at 105 knots with T5.5 102 knots, and the initial intensity is set at 105 knots with good confidence, slightly lower than a time late satellite consensus estimate of 108 knots. The system is showing slight weakening as it begins to be sheared by the mid-latitude westerlies. The typhoon is transiting through a region of moderate 20 to 25 knots vertical wind shear, 27-28 Celsius sea surface temperatures, excellent poleward outflow. Typhoon is tracking poleward, steered by a deep layered subtropical ridge to the east. Over the next 12 hours, the typhoon will gradually turn northeast as it approaches the island of Honshu under the steering influence of the aforementioned steering ridge. Prior to landfall, increasing vertical wind shear will cause the typhoon to steadily weaken as the upper level outflow is sheared by the mid-latitude trough. Additionally, as the northern portion of the system interacts with land, frictional effects will also erode the system. At around 18 hours, the system centre is expected to pass very close to the Tokyo area. Afterwards, the system will accelerate northeast as it becomes fully embedded within the mid-latitude trough and begins extratropical transition east of Honshu. And by the 36-hour mark, the typhoon will be a strong extratropical low-pressure system. Numerical model guidance is in excellent agreement with the respect to the forward speed, the system's direction, and as a result of that, high confidence in the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre's forecast track. And they have it, as mentioned, 300 nautical miles south-southeast Yokosuka, apology for that, Japan. Force 13 will continue to bring the latest information on this typhoon. Now we have a look at the latest instability. This is from 7 a.m. through to at least 1400 hours Sunday. Maximum temperatures: capital cities 17 in Sydney, 19 Melbourne, Brisbane 22 Perth, 25 Adelaide, 15 Hobart, Canberra 17 34, another hot one up there in Darwin. Now we have a look at storm probabilities. Current temperatures in the capital city: nearly 17 in Sydney, 14 Melbourne, 13.1 Brisbane, 13.8 Perth, 17.9 Adelaide, 11.1 Hobart, Canberra 11.1, and Darwin 28.6. Wind probability at the 850 millibars level. It's a GFS model. Information bottom of the screen. The wind is measured in knots. Showers Sydney forecasted, partly cloudy. Melbourne showers, possible storm here in Brisbane. Perth morning clouds, sunny afternoon. Adelaide mostly sunny, cloudy in both Hobart and Canberra, mostly sunny in Darwin. The Bureau's 12-hourly rainfall. The rainfall scale is on the right hand side of the screen. And as mentioned, Force 13 will continue to bring the latest information on Typhoon Hagibis, and as it edges towards the Japanese coastal region. And finally, the Bureau's 24-hour rainfall.
You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com with the latest. You can also find our YouTube page. You're probably there already, but if not, subscribe if you haven't so far. You can also find our Facebook page, Force 13 all in text, and it's at Force 13 on Twitter if you'd like to get in touch with us on there. You can also help the project become even better by enjoying the benefits of patronage. You can find out more information about how to become a patron and what those benefits are at patreon.com/Force13. You can also add Force 13 on Skype and Fool 13 at extension 9094 on Discord for tropical weather chat.